We always have one show with you brewing that's not launched while we're having a new one with you. So we haven't yet launched the last JFK show.
Right.
And it's great timing to launch it now due to the hula hoop about...
Oh, yeah, the documents release.
Which was a big disappointment, huh?
Actually, no.
10%, man. 10%.
Yeah, but what was released was very interesting. Over here, I was doing my blogging and listening to some talk radio shows over here on the day that they came out. And more than one American talk show host had on, I won't mention his name, but had on a well-known JFK conspiracy skeptic, a well-known defender, more or less, of the Warren Report. And he was saying, you know, spinning, before the documents were even really digested by anybody, he was spinning it, well, there's nothing in there. Basically, they substantiate, you know, the Warren Report and all that. And of course, if you look at what's in them, they do anything but do that. You know, we've got clear indications that Oswald was connected with the CIA in some capacity, which, you know, JFK assassination researchers, without the benefit of these documents, made a fairly good convincing case of that years ago. I'm thinking of Marina and Lee, that famous book, Epstein's book, and so on. So all of this came out, and now the documents are kind of confirming what assassination researchers have said all along. So, you know,
and did you notice there was something substantiating one of, you know, when we've had Nazi programs with you, we've gone down a road which unavoidably ends up in a very interesting conspiracy hypothesis connected to JFK and the Nazis and Hitler and Bormann. And for some reason, they put in the Hitler survival document.
Well, yeah, that's what really grabbed me about these things. You know, you had that field report document from some CIA agent down in Colombia reporting back to Langley that, according to rumors down there, you know, Hitler was alive in some Bavarian.
It was hilarious. Even the very sober James Corbett, even he started to get second thoughts about, what is this doing here? I have my thoughts.
What's that doing in the middle of a JFK documents release? You know, that really raised my eyebrows. What is this doing? Because I advanced the hypothesis in the LBJ Kennedy book that there was some sort of Nazi connection in all of this lingering in the background that nobody but Mae Brussel years ago wanted to go there, but now we get Hitler survival documents in a JFK documents release. And I thought, well, that's interesting.
I mean, there's only three explanations. Either it's a wink.
Yeah.
Or it's what you say, overseeing when it's a mistake.
Right. Well, it's either somebody having a bit of fun, you know, let's sneak that document in there and see what they do with it, or it was a mistake, as you say, or it had something to do with...
No, the third is that they want it out there for some reason, you know?
Yeah, well... that could be it too. And then you've got the possibility that, well, maybe this does have something to do with the JFK assassination. We just don't know what. You know? So, you know, there's nothing in the documents release that is that's going to overturn, in my opinion, the vast amount of research that's been done since President.
No, but I don't think anyone was afraid of that. I think they're looking for confirmations. But of course, when they retain 90% and Trump gave them as much time as they want to doctor it until they're going to consider a new release. Right. And I think we have to also notice that it's not just CIA documents, it's documents from all agencies.
Right.
So no, I'm not afraid. In fact, it's the opposite. They should be afraid.
Well, it's tainted the fact that so much has been held back until they go through it. You know, that means that any release is already going to be tainted and suspect. So, I view the JFK documents release the same way I view the Hess documents release, which, is also scheduled for this year. It's already a tainted source. So I'm not thinking that we're going to find out anything new. I suspect there may be one or two little nuggets that will yield some new information, but I don't think it's going to overturn 60 plus years of almost 60 years of assassination research. I really just don't see it happening.
I hope we get more when Bush Sr. dies. I'm thinking he's one of the reasons.
Yeah, I agree with you. I tend to think there's enough already out there implicating him at some level in the JFK matter, and I think to be blunt with you, Al, I think that President Trump's release was a little bit of a message sender to the portions of the deep state that were, combating him.
Not releasing all your cards at once, keeping something back. Right. That's right. I get it.
With all of the stuff going on in this country right now with the Uranium One business and the Clinton Foundation and all of that stuff, it wouldn't surprise me that this document's release was part of a much bigger bid.
And I'll not even ask you about Saudi Arabia, because then we'll never get to the business.
No, we won't.
But before we get to business, one more detour with you before we get there, because you mentioned the Hess release.
Right.
And we have to make people aware of your new book. I just got it. I just started it.
Okay. Well, I hope you're liking it.
Oh, yeah. It's so far, I'm just in the beginning, although I browsed to see what's coming. And we started, one of our first chats with you was kind of about these matters. And I'm going to twist your arm to get you back pretty soon to discuss it, because it's a classic. It's a classic Farrell book. And it's... the devil, the God is in the details. And
well, yeah, in this case.
Yeah, and I thought I knew this story, but man, this is interesting on so many levels. And it's like it's not your usual narrative, I think. It's more like a detective story, it seems.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to write it that way because there are other researchers out there that have basically uncovered just an enormous amount of detail about the Hess case. Some things, very, very few things, I think they miss some of the significance of. But basically, I'm synthesizing a lot of that information in this book and adding some details of my own that I think are very significant that have not been adequately addressed by anyone in the whole Hess business. But yeah, the new book is called Hess and the Penguins. And then the subtitle to that is Antarctica, the Holocaust, and the Strange Case of Rudolf Hess.
It's very timely. I guess you had in mind that they were going to release it this year.
Yeah, well, this is the year that the Hess documents are also supposed to be released. And, I make the observation in the book that this is the same year that the Kennedy documents, which, of course, we've seen release. And the fact that Hess, there's so much about the Hess case that has not yet been released ought to tell us something about the huge significance of that case.
And yet there's not so many shows about it. It's not like not a hyped conspiracy theory these days. It used to be back in the day, before, internet and everything. I don't know. I don't keep attention enough, but there's not that much around, is it, about it nowadays?
Well, no, there isn't, because people really don't understand really the massive significance of what he was trying to do, what he was trying to head off, what he was in contact with the British. Most everybody agrees that he was trying to make peace with the British, but what they don't understand was that he wasn't flying there to negotiate. He was flying there to sign the deal. He was flying under royal protection. He was bringing with him basically a completed peace treaty. There was factional infighting on both the British and the German side. there's every indication, as I point out in the book, that what the peace plan also was an international double coup plot against both Churchill and Hitler. And again, we have the ever-present wonderful man, Hermann Goering, mixed in.
I don't reveal too much. I haven't read the whole book yet.
Okay, well, I won't. I won't. But yeah, he had essentially negotiated a peace, and that's what he was really there for, is to sign the deal.
But there's a deeper layer here too. And,
the horror.
And you connected Antarctica to Hess at some point.
Yes.
That took me by surprise, although we did release a promo where we combined the Antarctica and Hess thing, but that was just intuitive on our part. We had no clue.
Right.
So then we excerpted it, put it into one show, just to spread awareness of us, and that became pretty quickly one of our most popular shows and the most pirated.
Huh.
And it was about Antarctica and Rudolf Hess.
Huh.
Now, what happened right after that is that the Antarctica craze took off. I'm not saying it's because of our show, but we were kind of ahead of the meme in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got a bit discouraged because now it was Antarctica everywhere, right? And so much bullshit too,
Yep.
But then at some point you connected the dot between Antarctica and Hess, and that was quite a shocker because it was just coincidental that we fused those two subjects into one show. And then you came and blew the bomb in a former show of ours, and now you backed it up with this brick in this book.
Yeah.
It's a brick. It's one of your classics. And I've told both Lawrence de Mello and Carter Heydrich, I've told them both that my hunch, so I'm very excited to see what your take on it is, but my hunch is that one of those who manipulated Hess in this affair was Bormann.
I think there is a possibility, but the trouble is Hess is not the fool that he's made out to be. He is actually a very unique man in the Nazi hierarchy. He was multilingual, for one thing. He spoke Arabic, he spoke French, he spoke English, and of course he spoke German.
And well educated.
So, and very well educated. He was not by any, if you want to think of him this way, think of him as the cosmopolitan Nazi.
Yeah, but my take on him isn't that he's stupid, but that he's more like he has principles. He's more an honest guy, not so sly as Bormann. The more you yourself are prone to trick people, the more you will also suspect stuff. And the more sincere you are, the more you will project that. So it's easier to fool honest people. So he wasn't stupid, but he was more like a sincere guy. It's so easy to trick sincere people because you kind of project what you have in you. If you're a crook, you'll never be fooled because you'll be skeptical all the time. But on the other hand, you'll never have good surprises. But if you have principles and if you're decent, you'll kind of see goodness all over. I'm not saying it's black and white like that, but I think Bormann was more clever in the way of manipulations.
Well, yes, he was, but to his credit, Hess is the one that spotted Bormann's talent and promoted him. So there would not have been a Bormann without Hess. Hess is I wouldn't say he's a master manipulator, but what he is he's very Byzantine and he's very cunning.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, one of the most surprising things I found out when I was doing that book was that Hess was widely regarded before his flight as being more or less the hidden brains to the whole Nazi operation. There were even articles to that effect in the American Foreign Affairs magazine, the flagship magazine of the Council of Foreign Relations.
Yeah, I heard he even was the one who actually wrote Mein Kampf. Or helped.
Well, yes, Hess actually wrote the more lucid parts of Mein Kampf, and actually the title Mein Kampf itself was Hess's suggestion. Hitler wanted some, title that was something like 4 years of struggle against pain, lies, and it's just the title was as long as the book, Right. So the title of Hitler's book was Hess's suggestion. some of the very familiar trappings of the Nazi Party were introduced via Hess from the Tula Gazelle shop.
So he was clickbait master of the day.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a very apt way of putting it. So yeah, there's a lot of layers to this thing that I try and unpeel in the book. I call it the Hess mess because once you get into it and see just what a hall of mirrors it really is, you've got everybody from apparently the royal family, the Duke of Hamilton, the Duke of Kent, and some other people on the British side, and then even the brother of Ian Fleming pops up in this thing, and
MK Ultra,
Alan Dulles,
Antarctica notwithstanding,
and Antarctica,
that's the penguin part.
Yeah, that's the penguin part, and people have been asking for years, well, what's the proof that Hess was involved with that? Well, there's nothing direct. However, there are little clues if you really stop and ponder what is really being said once he arrives in Great Britain. Then it's very clear that Antarctica is somehow part of the agenda, whatever's going on.
And an oddity we have to mention is the old, I think it's an 80s new wave band called Spandau Ballet.
Oh, yes.
Even they are present.
Well, yeah, I begin the book with the chapter called Spandau Ballet, and I end the book with a chapter called Spandau Ballet. And the first chapter, I have a little footnote right in the title of the chapter saying, no, I'm not talking about the 1980s rock group. And the final chapter, which is called Spandau Ballet, has a little subtitle, and that one says, yes, this time I am talking about.
That's funny. With lyrics.
With lyrics, yes.
So I recommend it wholly so far. I mean, I haven't read it yet, but it's an interesting read so far. I'll give a better evaluation next time when we discuss it.
Sure.
But let's move on, Joseph. They know about it now, and they also know we're going to have a show about it.
All right.
So tune in next time we have Joseph on for that.